This is Chris Johnson, a shy geek, injured by watching too many bad movies. Now a self-appointed movie critic, he has recruited Jim Moon, Elton McManus to help him host the Witless For The Defence, a podcast designed to fight cinematic crime, capable of incredible piss-taking and immense sarcasm. Only these three men can fight bad movies. The Men, the podcast, the Witless For The Defence. Welcome to the Witless For The Defence, Crown Court Edition. I'm Judge Chris Johnson, and with me as always is my expert legal team, Jim Moon.
Hello, folks.
And Elton McManus.
Hello.
Also, we have a hostile witness, Lee Medcalf from the Blackdog podcast, helping us to dispense cinematic justice. So this time she's Martin Thompson defending, and Mr. Matt Dillon from Geekplanetonline prosecuting. Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. So before we begin, I'll say hello to Lee, our hostile witness.
Hello.
You're not going to be too hostile, are you?
Well, the distance between us and the defendant is far enough that I can't cause any physical violence in the court.
Good. Right, so how has everybody been? Elton?
Yeah, not too bad, sir. The only discrepancy I have had in my life so far is we had a dog piss on our doorstep. But apart from that, it's absolutely fine.
That's cool.
It was from my other half does childminding, and one of the mums came round with her dog, her little puppy, which is very cute, and to pick up her son, and I was called out, oh look, come and have a look at this dog. So I went out and had a look, and all I could see was this little puddle on our doorstep. And I went, oh, and everyone then told me, yeah, he's just done a wee-wee on your doorstep. Oh, okay.
Nice.
And
are we sure it was the puppy?
I've been told it was the puppy. Now, she then commented that, oh, you're not a dog person, are you? I nearly replied with, yes, I am a dog person, actually.
I replied, woof, 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 woof. And then sniffed her ass. Yeah, I wasn't. Then sat in the middle of the carpet and wiped your ass across it.
Yeah.
Your legs up around your ears.
The rules of comedy would compel me.
I am a dog person, but I'm all right now.
Oh dear. No,
Sorry.
I am a dog person. I just don't appreciate a dog taking a wee-wee on my front doorstep. So, yeah, wasn't impressed with that. But apart from that, everything is hunky-dory.
Cool. Jim?
I'm fairly good, but I've had a sinus infection thanks to one of my teeth cracking.
Oh.
It was alright. It was a dead one that is actually 90% stunt tooth. But unfortunately, it was the stunt tooth was cracked, so I ended up with a weird sinus infection, which kind of felt like I had a stuffed up nose when I didn't, and had a feeling just like you're being underwater all week. I saw my dentist, he looked and said, you got an infection there? And I was like, no shit, you old tosser. Give me the antibiotics. Thank you. See you next week, you can repair this.
It's a good job it's on the NHS, because I wouldn't be paying for this kind of fucking service.
It's one of those, I think the last 3 times to the dentist has been the same bloody tooth. I know you said it, just pull the damn thing out. I'm sick of it. I just don't care anymore. Just get rid of it. But other than that, it's been nice. I've enjoyed the good weather. I've been out in my garden killing would-be trees that are sprouting up everywhere.
Nice.
Which has made kind of sawing up lots of sticks and then hiding them in the rubbish so the council take them away unbeknownst. Suckers. No green waste in my bin. Honest. Well, they'll sort it at the tip anyway. Come on.
Exactly. Yeah.
But if they can't see it, it can't hurt them.
Yep.
Nice.
So that's been fun, yes. So I'm quite happily in summer mode now, which is malingering, finding excuses to work outside, or just go outside, or not work at all.
Lovely.
Which, the way I figure it, these might be the only bits of summer we see, so I'm making the most of them.
Yeah, definitely try that out. Lee, have you tried to kill yourself this week?
Not quite. I have just recovered from like 20 minutes of frantic panicking because half a cable was hanging out the back of my PC, but that wasn't actually my fault. Apart from that, I watched Days of Future Past X-Men, otherwise known as If Your Magneto Put a Ring on It. And then I continued to finish off my shed, which I was very proud of until all the windows fell out after a gust of wind.
Oh, God.
But apart from that, I'm just getting on with some work dealing with crazy Italians. And I can't really talk about it much more than that. And other than that, it's all good. I went down to Brighton and sort of sauntered around there with the kids and then Katie had her 10th birthday party, so I was up to my neck in sugar-drugged children screaming at the top of their voices, which was great. I think it was about 11:30 the following morning before they finally came down off the ceiling. But otherwise, it's all good.
I think that's my worst nightmare, being in a room full of kids.
Oh man, trust me. If I could go back in time and just stick 2 bricks between my legs and just smash them really hard together, I would. But anyway.
Yes, enough of that. As for me, I've spent my 2 days off waiting for somebody to come round to get all the rubbish out of my garden. On the first day, he didn't arrive until sort of like 4:30. So I stayed in all that time, and then he says, I can't take it now, I have to come tomorrow. So
he was too busy with gyms, that's why.
So I spent another, day. He came about 4:00 again, so I spent all that time in. Again, and he managed to take it then.
Mm.
Well, I say, but 2 days. He said he'll come early,
Maybe that's early for him. Maybe that's 2 days is rapid.
Knowing how tradespeople appointments work, he was early. He actually appeared this week.
Yeah.
No, more than that, he actually appeared at all.
And I was paying him to get rid of my rubbish. Bastard. So I spent 2 days in for no particular reason.
Well, you avoided the zombie apocalypse of Blackpool, so that was good.
Yeah, because it is nice and busy.
There you go.
And I mean, it's just full of pensioners, so it is almost a zombie apocalypse.
Night of the Nearly Dead.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Yeah. The bingo undead.
Right, let's get to the case, shall we?
Mm.
Let's start off with the facts. I'm not going all the way through these facts because everybody knows the facts. But we all have one person to blame for this movie, and that was Harrison Ford. Because he hounded George Lucas about making another one, and then he hounded Steven Spielberg to make it, who didn't want to make it at all, but he did it for his friend, didn't he?
Bless him.
Right, so what did it score? It's 6.3 out of 10 on IMDb, 78 on Rotten Tomatoes, and 65 on Metacritic, which is higher than any other film we've done. So, why is it on here?
Sorry.
And I consider it a waste of 185 million.
Was half of that the Synatogen to keep Harrison Ford on his feet?
Probably.
Some of that went on Radox to cool him down at the end of the day as well.
Right, so what order would you say the 4 films or the 3 films and the fan fiction? Which order would you put them in as your favourites?
Well, I just say Raiders right at the top. Last Crusade closely followed. Temple of Doom quite a way down, because I think it's a horrible, cynical misstep of a film. And then right under that, like right underneath like Judas's arse, staring up underneath him through the block of ice in the 7th level of hell, is Kingdom of Crystal clusterfuck.
Jim?
Obviously, Raiders at the top. Then for me, probably a bit further down, Last Crusade, for reasons I'll get to. And then kind of rolling around in the cesspit like 2 drunken harpies in a broken glass-filled council estate car park after closing time. Our Temple of Doom and Crystal Skull trying to scratch each other's eyes out.
Elton?
I'm pretty much the same as Jim, but I would have Raiders with, let's say, 10 out of 10, Crusade, 9 out of 10, and the other 2, I don't know, Only Childs, maybe about 5 out of 10 each.
Yeah, I can see that. Maybe a bit sort of 4 out of 10 for one of those 2.
Well, I mean, Temple of Doom at least feels like an indie film, and half the punches don't feel like the sound effect is actually the hip breaking. So I'd put the Temple of Doom just slightly above, to be honest. But that's just me.
That's just you.
Yeah.
Right. So let's start this off. Let's start with the defence, shall we?
Yes, indeedy.
Your Honour, members of the court, and ladies and gentlemen of the jury, it is my intention here today to defend the 2008 film Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, the much maligned 4th entry in the adventure film series. Now, first of all, I would like to enter the Phantom Menace defence plea. This film had so much hype attached to it that it could not possibly have lived up to it. In fact, this film had it worse than the Phantom Menace, and it had been so long in gestation and had an ageing lead attached to, which of course led to numerous jokes about Indy trekking the world using a Zimmer frame or his adventures in the nursing home of doom. This film was a joke before it was even released, and even so, the finished product is hardly the beginning of the end of Western civilization. Did it deserve a South Park episode in which Lucas and Spielberg rape Indy on screen? I think not. Now, I ask you to think back and consider what you may have thought of this film had it been released in, say, 1992, 3 years after The Last Crusade. Would it still be as hated had it been released then, even after one of the series' best entries? In the end, though, I would argue that the passage of time is used well in this film. The Nazis may have gone, but the Russians make a suitable replacement, tapping into the whole Reds under the bed paranoia of 1950s America. It's this atomic age setting and the B-movie feel that sets it apart from the other 3 films in the franchise, and at least Harrison Ford is not pretending to be 40 again. The ageing Indy is now weighing up his life, and the film places him in the role of teacher to Mutt as his past catches up with him. Mutt is now the eyes of the audience as we catch up with Indy as well, and I think Shia LaBeouf does well with the character he's given. Now, my learned friend for the prosecution will no doubt enter into evidence one lead-lined fridge. Now, this is one of the film's most notorious items, and of course led to the phrase nuking the fridge as a replacement for jumping the shark. And of course, like all of movie logic, it can be up to some debate. Although I did find recently the Real Physics show on YouTube, which is attached to the Escapist magazine, has actually proved that this could be done. And the only thing unbelievable about it is, in fact, that the fridge overtook the car. I mean, we're prepared to believe in the face melty box, known as the Ark of the Covenant, but, why not this? I mean, I think that still sticks very much with the B-movie, 1930s adventure serial, very well. I mean, you just look at the crazy situations Adam West's Batman was placed in each week. Back in the 1930s, this would probably seem pulp entertainment, but today we place things under so much scrutiny. Although, to be honest, this scene never particularly bothered me. I'd also like to enter into evidence one Temple of Doom. Now, I'm sure we all did our Black Dog homework a few weeks back and rewatched this. So, tell me, is this really that much better? I'd rather see Mutt and Marion rather than Willie and Shortround again. I mean, why is this film held in so much higher regard? I mean, is it simply because it was made back in the franchise's 1980s heyday? I've been defending this film so far, but have some basically more positive points to it. I like Indy's reintroduction with the shadow and the hat blowing away. The idea of the warehouse, seen from the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark. Yeah, there's a gratuitous shot of the Ark of the Covenant, but I think it's justified. I think it's nice to see it there. The way he finds the artifact is very clever, and his escape was a great piece of action. In the end, who else was doing this style of old-fashioned action in 2008? The action sequences, the globe-trotting, the problem-solving, they're all very indie. The motorbike escape is very good too. They hit a statue of Marcus Brody, haven't they? And they skid into the library, and one of Indy's students asks him a question. Now, one of my favourite moments in the whole film, actually, and in the whole of the franchise, in fact, is that great jungle chase. And it's one that, when I watch it, I do wonder why this film is so maligned. You have people jumping from vehicle to vehicle, sword fighting, they're throwing the skull here and there, there's monkeys coming down, killer ants at the end. It's all great stuff, and it's still very in line with the indie films of old. Well, when it comes to the ending of this, I can't honestly defend it. But I do like the idea of an alien artifact as the thing that Indy's looking for. And its connection to Roswell as well, which is a great piece of 20th century urban myth, and it has the same kind of air of mystery attached to it as a religious artifact might do, which has been covered, of course, in the previous films, the Ark of the Covenant and the Holy Grail. I wish a bit more mystery was left, though, or that perhaps if the Men in Black had swooped in and taken charge and left it a bit open-ended that way as well. Also, look at all the great guests they got into. John Hurt is enjoying himself immensely as Ox. Karen Allen is a great fall for Indy as Marion. You got Ray Winston in as Mac. Jim Broadbent is a good replacement for Marcus Brody, even though he's only in a few scenes. Kate Blanchett, Alan Dale, and you even get the janitor from Scrubs as a Man in Black. Now, I'm not claiming that this is the best of the franchise. Of course not. That would be perjury. But it's also not the insult to cinema that it's made out to be. This is still a fun adventure film and should be treated as such. I think it recaptures the feel of the old films despite its distance, and I do think it's that distance that partially has settled some people to it. This film could be much, much worse. And re-examining its case, and I'm positive that you'll see that its crimes aren't as bad as they've been reported. The defence rests.
So, do you reckon hype killed this film?
No.
No.
I think our defendant is entirely misguided as well, and clutching at straws, because yes, this was talked about for years, but it was nothing near the levels of expected rapture and joy and excitement and a boatload of merchandising that accompanied the coming of the Phantom Menace. This had a positively low-key release in comparison, to my mind. It was a big deal, don't get me wrong, but it was nowhere near the levels of Phantom Menace expectation. I dare say if this movie had come out before Phantom Menace, it might have got to that kind of fever pitch. Although Indy, by his very nature, although kind of on par in cinematic fandom with the Star Wars franchise, he isn't quite on the same level when it comes to sticking his logo on any old bit of tat going. But also, Indy hasn't had kind of an ongoing juggernaut of an expanded universe of spin-offery, keeping people's appetite sort of sharp and expectant the way Star Wars was, and kind of once Star Wars had returned after, many of us, we did think Lucas, he's never going to do any more. And now many of us wish that was the case. But, it was kind of like, oh my God, it's finally happening. It was such a big deal. Whereas Indy was we'd all like another one, but I think, as Martin alluded to, it's kind of, as the years went on, and everyone started going, he's a bit old and past it. And, let's be honest, Harrison Ford's star has plummeted over the years. He tried to do serious acting roles. He made spying boring as Jack Ryan. Yeah. And, after he'd pretty much been bad-mouthing the films that made his name for years, suddenly he's, oh, George, let's do another Indy. Steve, come on. I've got the fedora. It's like, come on. No, I don't think hype killed this. I think there was big expectations, but at the same time, I don't think the reception it got is down to that it not being able to live up to the hype. I don't think there was that much hype for it to live up to be honest.
I mean, the problem really is that with something like Last Crusade, it ended so well, with them all riding off into the sunset. This felt like a sequel that didn't even need to happen. So a lot of people were already guarded, and it taken so long to come out, or so long to happen, that it was like, I think everyone, I don't think the hype was even it was a tenth of Phantom Menace, because everyone was just sitting there going, something doesn't smell right. If they didn't need to make this film, there's no real reason for it. And everyone involved seems to be really cagey about getting it going. There was this whole sort of, I don't know if it was apocryphal or what, but there's this whole story of sort of like Spielberg wouldn't do it unless he liked the same thing that Lucas and Ford did, and they all had to agree on a script and, before anything happened. And for me, that immediately raises the red flags, because eventually it's going to come to something that's, a compromise between all three, rather than, say, the director turning around and saying, I want to make this film. And that's part of that. I don't think the hype was there. I mean, it was there, obviously. I mean, it was a whole heap of trailers and teasers and what have you. But I don't think everyone was kind of sort of gagging for another indie film in the way that, Star Wars fans were gagging to see sort of like an X-Wing on the screen.
Well, the thing is, with Star Wars, it was the legendary return. It's part of the Star Wars, mythology, that it's a trilogy of trilogies, and, one day he's going to do this prequel trilogy. And it was expected for decades. Whereas another indie film was something that just popped up in gossip and people thought, oh, maybe.
Yeah. But,
wasn't it at the awards, some award ceremony, where Harrison Ford was asked in front of the whole studio, will you be doing Indy 4? And he did turn around and say, well, none of us are getting any younger, and it's up to Lucas. And I remember the whole place just erupting about that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, it's like nothing that came out of the sort of pre-release of this film ever made you think that you were going to see anything of the same caliber as, say, Last Crusade or Raiders, because really, it was kind of cashing in on that sort of slowly emerging thing of what I call Jerry action, where you sort of where you sort of see like sort of your Stallones and your Arnie's all coming back looking like a wet sock full of walnuts, sort of waddling around, shooting a couple of times and going, I'm getting too old for this shit. And then you sort of, if you started thinking, well, that's going to be indie as well, why no one really wants to make this film. Spielberg clearly didn't.
Nope,
and
we didn't.
And it's just like, well, even the hype, as much as it was kind of muted by comparison to, oh, here's a tank coming out of the mist. Star Wars! Yay!
Yeah. Although I do tend to get the feeling that they all sat around and waited for one or the other, either Lucas, Spielberg, or Ford, to turn around and say, do you know what? Let's not do it. And they all sat. It's like three people turning up at a roundabout in England, and they'll just sit there waiting for it to move. And
But no one quite understands the right-of-way system.
Yeah, and they're just sitting there going, okay, if you're not going to go, then I'm not going to go. Oh, actually, we do actually have to make this movie. And I think they waited for someone to pull out, and nobody did.
No.
And as it was, they all actually went for it at the same time and collided in the middle in an unseen mess.
With that interview with Steven Spielberg, and he always says it sounded like he just went along with it just to shut Lucas up.
Yeah.
It sounds just like Lucas kept going on and on. I don't want to do aliens, but he didn't do aliens, he did dimensional creatures.
Yeah.
Dimensional creatures, my highness.
Well, yeah. I mean, you know, with all of that sort of thing, it's like that's lovely. You know, I think the thing with Spielberg sort of saying, you know, essentially throwing Lucas under the bus and going, well, yeah, actually, you know, I did it because he wanted to do it and he's my friend.
Yeah.
It's like, that's fine, but not to the tune of 180 million quid. You know, at least put some effort into it. Or fight for the bits that you think should be done, you know, or how you should be done. Not CGI fucking monkeys that look like they fell out of Jumanji.
Hey, they give their best performance.
Yeah, well, they're using motion capture from Shia LaBeouf in the middle of them.
I see with this film, because like, what is it, Temple of Doom, they made that when they were going through divorces.
Yeah.
But what are they now? They are now
Washed up.
granddads. It is a granddad movie. Indy's a dad, being the old man. Yeah, they're all old men, so it's just an old man movie. It's not like a passing on to the next generation, because they took, you know, as in Shia LaBeouf just about to put the hat on, and they just grabbed it off him. So it's not like it was a passing on either.
How many groans would there have been if he had put that hat on, though?
Well, everyone did groan. When in the cinema I went to see it, I went to see a screening of it. And as soon as you saw LaBeouf pick it up, half the audience just went, ooh. And then all of a sudden, Indy grabbed it and walked up and goes, don't even wear it, or something like that, and wanders off. And everyone just went, and it was just, it wasn't like a sigh of relief, it was just a sigh of resignation.
Right. Yeah. I know we mentioned the nuking of the fridge, which I'm going to have it stricken off the records. This can be the Jar Jar Binks of the movie. The Jar Jar Binks of Indiana Jones.
I have to admit, the fridge has grown on me.
Really? You should get that scene too.
Well, if it was done in real life, he'd have fucking grown on Indy. He'd been spot welded across his skin.
Yes.
I don't care what the fucking escapist says. Yes, the lead might protect you from radiation, but you'd have melted like a puddle of soft shit on a hot day if that had been in the heart of a nuclear explosion.
And also, they says it rolled across the ground when they said it was possible, but you see it fly and bounce like twice.
Yeah, if the heat didn't kill him, the G-force didn't kill him, the impact would have. It should have opened up and a large pile of jelly should have just slithered out. Although, considering Ford's performance, I'm not entirely sure that didn't happen.
I mean, with the fridge, I mean, obviously people bring it up, but the reason they bring it up is because it's, I think, I mean, for me at least, is the reason they bring it up is because it's symbolic. It's symbolic. It's like Happy Days wasn't shit, but it was getting worse. And when the Fonz jumped the shark and everyone rolled their eyes and like, ooh, it was like the audience giving up. And this is the same with nuking the fridge. It's no more or less plausible than half the stunts in the rest of the series. But the fact of the matter is, the film had lost its audience by 30 minutes in when nuking the fridge happens, and it becomes symbolic because everyone's just like, oh, I don't care. You know, and it's not a bad scene. It's not a scene that's the worst scene ever committed to celluloid. It's just the fact that it's the point where people realise that they are not going to go with the story because they're not engaged in it. So they're picking holes in it. And it's the first point, because it's a double whammy. Not only does he land out of the fridge and pick up his hat and stand under what appears to be a humongous 7 million megaton nuclear weapon, but there's a comedy gopher there that suddenly sort of does a little salute and fucks off, and it's like, oh my god, okay, right, fine. So you've not only pissed in my cornflakes, but you've taken a shit in the bowl and then put the bowl on my head. You know, it's just gone that one step too far. And that's the problem. It's not the nuking the fridge itself. It's the fact that it's a flag in the sand in the story where you go, that's it, I'm out.
Well, it's one of those things. I mean, I think that's exactly it. Because for me, I lost faith with this movie approximately 5 seconds in. When the Paramount logo fades into a fucking gopher. Into a gopher hill. Yeah. That was kind of like, oh dear. What's going on here? And then when we have nuking the fridge, it was kind of, oh, that's it, I'm out. And now, Martin says, oh, but Batman in the 60s got out of far more ridiculous things. But yes, but that was a camp show. Yep. This is Indiana Jones. This isn't sticking its tongue in its cheek. I mean, what makes Raiders such a good pulp action film is the kind of realism that they brought to Ford's character as a hero. He wasn't an invincible, pumped up condom full of walnuts like his contemporaries, the aforementioned, Cherry action stars. He could handle himself in a fight, but he wasn't super tough. He wasn't a crack shot. He got dirty, he got bruised, he got beaten up. And, there were some amazing stunts in it, but it was all kind of believable. Yeah. Whereas this nuking the fridge is kind of, no, it's the wrong tone. And I think it's that moment where people, as Lee says, where you realise this isn't right. This isn't right for Indy, and you've just really took it too far, and that that's why this move, because this is the moment where people checked out, definitely.
Yeah.
Film. Why I lost interest in this film. When they're going up to Area 51, I didn't mind. I didn't mind the start. It was all right, but that bloke, that general Russian bloke, gets out of the van, walks up to the barrier, and then ducks to tie a shoelace, and there's 4 blokes stood behind him.
which only works if you've got a really wide lens and a narrow field of view. Yeah. And instead of being 20 guys standing at a checkpoint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were they hiding up his arse? So when he bent over, they jumped out?
Yeah, the Russian version of Pan's People were drafted in so they could all come out and do that sort of Carly thing where they all stand behind each other and wave their arms about.
Oh, was it Russian nesting dolls?
Yeah.
I'm surprised they weren't all slightly shorter than each other.
I'll have to go back and look at that scene again. Maybe they are.
Yeah.
The whole sequence was fairly painful, because for me, before even getting to nuking the fridge, some of those scenes in the warehouse just looked awfully shot. Where you can, in some cases, where they just stood on a green screen because they couldn't be bothered to do a set properly. It's kind of watching it. I mean, it's one of those. I was disappointed when I first saw Crystal Skull. Having had to watch it several couple more times, it's like each viewing, I just begin to despise it a bit more. I think, to be honest, this isn't a film that was like people hated on and got, toys out of the pram about immediately. It's kind of, I think there was a definite arc in sort of the public consciousness of kind of, that was disappointing, to kind of, no, it's not any good, is it? It really isn't. Oh, God, it's terrible. Oh, God, it's actually, the other ones aren't very good either, apart from Raiders. Oh, Christ. Oh, no. And it's kind of, it has this horrible half-life of shiteness that taints the rest of the franchise, because it really shows up the flaws in the other ones, and how none of the sequels have actually really delivered a good second chapter for Indy.
Point of order, Your Honour.
Come on, Last Crusade is the Return of the Jedi. It's, hey, what can we do? Shall we remake the first one? Let's do it.
Oh, Your Honour.
Controversial.
Well, I mean, all I would say, and I don't want to perjure the court by having a go at going at one of the main jury, and taking the legal team out and giving him a slap. No, no. The thing with Temple of Doom and with Last Crusade is the one thing they do is they follow the Raiders template quite nicely of escalation and gradual escalation into the point where you kind of, when you get to the crazy stunts, and all of them have crazy stunts, you're kind of, the story has got you involved first, so that when you come to the crazy stuff, you're emotionally, or, at least invested in the story. When the stuff happens in Crystal Skull and you're in that Area 51 and everything's kicking off, it's kind of like, that's a middle act kind of action sequence. And it's happening right at the start, and you've got no investment in anything that's going on. So you're just sitting there going, okay, this is like watching a trailer. This is Indy getting punched. This is Indy running away. This is not making any sense. What are the stakes? None of it makes any sense. So I think, with something like Last Crusade, the escalation happens with sort of like the little backstory with Indy and just kind of building his motivations, with when he's the young scout. And then, and then you get sort of like the whole sequence in Venice, and it slowly builds up to what they're actually trying to do. And whereas with Crystal Skull, it just starts off with, we're going to have a big action sequence, da 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 da, and it's like, yeah, but who are these people? Why are they after this? Establish the story before showing me the action. It's all arse about face.
Mm. But isn't that movie making nowadays anyway? Everyone wants to get straight into the action. A lot of the movies nowadays have a big set piece, and then you're into the story.
Yeah, but that doesn't excuse it being this film. I mean, just because.
You could set it up. I mean, I think Last Crusade with the young Indy. I mean, you do have a very big set piece with the train and the snakes, and whereas this, it just kind of, it does throw you in the deep end, and it is kind of a bit more lead up. Even just for that scene itself is badly paced on its own, because it is just like, whoa!
Yeah. But that opening of Last Crusade is a mini story in itself. It's like the opening of a James Bond movie.
Yeah.
It sets the goals, it sets the characters, it lays everything out, it gives you a little set to play in, and then come the conclusion, you have the action, and it just builds and escalates and builds and escalates, and then finally comes to an end, and then ta-da, we're off to the credits, that sort of thing. And Crystal Skull doesn't do that. It just suddenly, we're having a race in a car with a bunch of obvious Russians dressed up as US military, then we're having a fight in a warehouse. It's just like, what? And there's no establishment of anything except for occasionally Ray Winstone going, do you remember that time back in 54 when we fought 100 people or whatever? And it's like, who are you? Who the hell are you? And why do I care what you're saying?
Well, that's it. And then his betrayal makes no sense, has no impact, because we don't know him anyway. What do we care?
Exactly.
You don't know anybody in this film apart from Marion.
Exactly. And it's the same with Jim Broadbent.
Yep.
He turns up long enough to go to drop some McCarthy era stuff, which is sort of glanced upon and ignored. And then he drops this whole thing of, Indy, I got you some wages because I've resigned. It's like, brilliant. Who are you?
Yeah.
And so what?
Exactly what I thought.
But the music tells you that you got to be worried about this. And it was like, well, if it was Denham Elliott, then maybe it would have had a bit of impact. But it wasn't. It was Jim Broadbent walking in and going, no, you can't have this. Federal Bureau have come in. It's like, okay. I've resigned. Okay. It's the Star Trek Into Darkness thing. It's the I am Khan. It's like, brilliant. The characters don't know who Khan is. So what? You know, shrug his shoulders. Yeah, hi, I'm Kirk. This is Spock. I am Khan. No. And this is Bones over here, and that's Red Shirt McAdam. But I am Khan. Yeah, whatever. Why am I supposed to care?
Right. What other things did he like? He liked the finding of the crystal skull in Area 51. I thought it was shit. It's the worst bit of magnetism ever. If that thing was strong enough to pull gunpowder from the other side of the warehouse, that building would not have been standing.
It should have been a whole big crumpled heap of metal.
It's made out of steel and tin roofs.
Yeah.
It should have just pulled itself north. Every bit of... You could have found it by the lights just pointing at it. Because the second they opened the wood, the wooden crate, all the lights and all the guns and the dog tags point at it.
Yeah.
Well, it's one of those, even like every kid knows, because we've all had those little toys where you have a little plastic spider with a magnet and another magnet, and you can make it move under a table. You know, yeah, we all know, wood does not insulate magnetism. And what I don't understand, it struck me this time on the third viewing, why are the skulls magnetic anyway, you retards? They're crystal. Why make them, what's the point of them being magnetic? None whatsoever. It's just throwing some freaky bollocks every now and again when you can't think of anything else to do. I mean, I think the actual gut kind of instinct, I wouldn't call it an idea and glorify it, but the kind of instinct of kind of, let's do kind of like, a paranoid, sorcery 1950s SF flavour indie for an older indie. That's a good idea. That's got real potential. But the way they just do it here, Area 51, yawn. Oh, look, it's a crystal skull. Oh, well, it's just, come on. You can come up with something. You should have come up with something that was proper 50s flavoured. You know what I mean? Where this just isn't hitting the mark. It's just a hodgepodge of lazy tropes that aren't put together in an interesting fashion. And the story is pretty much non-existent. You know what I mean? That's what I really noticed this time around. It's kind of, let's just go here, go to that tomb, and then, let's go to the jungle and get it over with. It's a bit actually light on the globe trotting and the puzzle solving. It's just a bit, we'll do that.
I mean, it does have puzzle solving in it. I mean, I think, just going back to the magnetism for a second, I mean, it looked like, if that magnetism was, sort of had any plot point at all, I
think I'm cutting out here.
I think someone waved a magnetic crystal skull at Skype.
Yeah, I was hoping to talk about magnetic.
Oh yeah, right. Okay, so are we still recording?
Yes, we're recording.
Okay, cool. So the thing with the magnetism was I was expecting it to be used as a MacGuffin for Indy's escape. It was like, he stands beside it, everyone shoots at him, and the bullets all get attracted to the crystal skull. The sort of ting, and they all hit that, and he uses it to, I don't know, disarm everyone with, instantly because it pulls all the guns out of their hands, or something like that. But he just stands there like a limp lettuce and just helps them. And that's the worst bit in like, this is, in the problem at its core is Indy is not Indy in this film. Because in Raiders and in Temple of Doom and in Last Crusade, he is resolute in not helping the bad guys at all. He is your square-jawed 50s B-movie American hero. And so when someone asks him, like in, Last Crusade, starts slapping him with the with the glove, you came back for the book. Why? Slap. Will you do this? Why? And he's just like, oh, go stick it up your arse. And the same goes for like in Raiders or in Temple of Doom when they're filling in full of that Kalima blood thing. He's always fighting the bad guys. He never concedes or helps them in any way. And yet in this one, it's like, you will show us where the crystal is, And it's like, oh, all right then, I'll give me some bullets, give me some shotgun shells. And you think, okay, this is all leading to an escape. But it doesn't. It just leads him to helping the Russians. And it's like, oh, all right then. So there was nothing clever about this at all. And then he gets caught by the Russians later on, and it's like, oh, I'll help you again because they're going to kill Marion. Well, no, how about you try and escape like you did in every other film? Instead of assisting the bad guys until you can escape. And, it's like, what? No. And the whole point is, the worst bit is that Indy's a skeptic all the way through. And so he's continually sort of going, I don't believe in this. I don't believe in these kind of things. And it's like, okay. And yet he helps them along, whereas he's seen the Holy Grail. He's seen magic stones. He's felt the wrath of God blast an entire platoon of Nazis away. And yet
he's met a 1,000-year-old knight.
Yeah, he's met a 1,000-year-old knight. He's walked across apparently endless gullies of, which have, he's seen voodoo dolls work at first hand. He's seen all this magical shit, and yet someone says, oh, this crystal skull will allow you to see into someone's mind. And he goes, I don't believe it. It's a bedtime story. It's like, oh, fuck off.
But that's his way, though, isn't it? Surely it was all like that in the Crusade as well. It's all about it's just about bedtime stories and hocus pocus and all that malarkey.
That was the book, though. That was the book. When it suddenly turned out that the book was revealing something that actually existed, he was willing to go with it. And the consequences were the Nazis get hold of something that would allow them 1,000 years of rule. Whereas this, he's like straight away, oh, don't worry, Akator doesn't exist, kid. And all this kind of stuff. And it's like, really?
But then he got the skull.
Mm-hmm.
He got the skull and then was starting to believe once he had gone into Hert's cell. He was starting to believe at that point.
By which point you still don't understand why the skull was important to anyone. And it's just like it has no powers. It has no basis in mythology, which allows you to kind of go, oh yeah, of course the Holy Grail will make people live forever, or the Ark of the Covenant is God's holy weapon, or any of that stuff.
So your complaint is that it's not tethered to anything on the earth.
No,
in our history. Is it because it's not like a religious thing? Because they have very powerful ways of leading you in. If it's tethered to the earth in religion, then a lot of people will be backing it up. Because it's space aliens or interdimensional aliens, because George Lucas came up with it, then it's less believable.
No, because aliens is a very 50s thing. It is Area 51. They could have made a whole heap of stuff out of it. But
plus, there's the whole ancient aliens thing, which they toy with in a lazy-ass fashion. I mean, exactly. you could have tied aliens in to the ancient artifacts, ancient religions.
Yeah, the Egyptians.
Yeah. I mean, people do rag on this film because of the aliens, but I think in concept, the aliens aren't really a problem. It's just how it's done is a problem. And as Lee says, Ford's reaction is kind of like, oh, come on, after the shit you've seen.
Yeah.
He should be there going, I don't know if there's anything to this, but if there is, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
That should be his Indy's tack of kind of, there's a lot of weird stuff out there. This is far too dangerous to allow these clowns to potentially get their hands on it. That should be his motivation.
No,
it'll be all right.
Yeah.
Oh, I've been captured.
No, that's fine. But when I came round to actually watching this movie, all I'd heard was, oh, it's just fucking aliens. It's just flipping aliens. You see a big saucer at the end of the film. Oh, it's bloody aliens. And when I saw the movie, 10 minutes into the movie, you're given an alien. And so I thought, well, why can you complain about aliens when they're spelling it out from the beginning? It's about aliens or beings or anything like that. So that's what I found confusing about this.
No, see, I think the thing with the aliens per se, firstly, obviously it doesn't fit with the theme of religious artifacts, and, you know, that's fine. People can argue that until the cows come home. And aliens, as I said before, it's very 50s kind of idea. It was the dawn of the UFO age, essentially. But the problem here is that there is nothing that the skull does that seems threatening, unless you want to pull your change out your pockets. And to be quite honest, the Russians need, the worst bit is that the Russians' motivations for having it, which is essentially, you know, brain reading spies and all this kind of stuff, is fine and dandy, except for the fact that you're never really given a sort of like, this is a world-ending threat. It's just kind of like, it's casually passed off by Kate Blanchett, the exposition machine, who just turns up every 5 minutes and explains every element of her plan to random people. I reckon she walks into like the local sort of Pizza Hut and they say, what can I get you today? Today I will be taking over the world using a crystal skull to read everyone's mind. And can I have a margarita? You know, it's just like, it's just, the problem is it doesn't give you a threat. It gives you something that might happen, possibly, but we just don't know. And the fact that the power of the skull is so inconsistent doesn't make you feel that there's any, and they get it so bloody early. They get the whole thing. It's like jumping to the last 20 minutes of Raiders when the Nazis finally get the Ark. And you think, oh shit, here we go. But they get it like 15 minutes into the film, the skull.
Yeah, but aren't they just trying to do something a little bit different? Otherwise you'd just be following the same beats again and again in another movie.
Which is fine, but, you know, let's be honest. Every movie in the world, with some maybe crazy art house exceptions, has a 3-act structure.
Yeah.
You have introduction of the hero, introduction of the threat, the pursuit of the threat, and, you know, sort of trials and tribulations along the way, and then finally the big final showdown. Now, in this case, they just leapt straight to the big final showdown, got 40 minutes into the film, and then just went, shit, we should have had Indy doing something. And then just had him tossing around in caves and raiding tombs when there was no need to. And then bloody Russian Totty turns around and says, oh yes, we have a crystal skull in Russia we have had, and we got one from New Mexico, and we got this one which we just nicked off for you. And it's like,
got to catch 'em all.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Yes. Pikachu, I choose you. And the thing is like, well, hold on. So if you got 3, why the fuck do you need? Why on earth do you actually need another one?
Because they needed that one from. Hang on.
They need that one that just happened to be the right one to fit on the head of that particular skeleton.
Didn't they?
Yeah, they had a body with a crystal skull inside it that was actually glowing blue. So why did they need the one that Indy found?
I was just going to say that. Because that's very confusing, because they find an alien body with a skull in it, and then they go to that other place with that almost zombified
actor
bloke, you know, all wrapped in bandages, and they find another one.
No, that's the one that they have to put back. The one they find there behind the zombie guy is the one they put back, isn't it?
Yeah, it
so
is
what's
the one
with the first one then? The first one's pointless.
Yeah. Yeah, why did they go through the Area 51 to get that one then? And they already confessed that they already had one that they nicked from New Mexico, and they already confessed that they had one in Russia. She actually says that before Indy goes on a sort of staring competition with the one crystal skull that he's already had.
Because they were looking for the right one, weren't they?
No, they never said that.
But
They just said we had one naturally already, and then we got one from New Mexico, and then now thank you, we've got this one.
but then they
I've
know
worked
that
it out. I've worked it out. It's Cinderella. Whosoever this crystal skull fits.
Yeah. So what happened to the body of the second alien? The one
That
that
was
they
left
had
at
on
camp.
the table. Was it?
Yeah.
Went
Why
back
would
to the
they-
joke shop with the rubber snake they got him out of the sandpit
Oh,
with.
God. Don't go into that yet.
We got a long road ahead of us.
Right, so he's got, let's back to his defence. I didn't mind the diner fight and the bike chase. That was fairly innocuous.
I like those bits.
Yeah.
What annoys me with Crystal Skull is there are moments in it where you see the film it could have been.
Yeah.
And that's sort of, the diner fight and the bike chase, I think that's where I kind of get back on board with the film. And then fall promptly off when they hit Marcus's statue and the head falls off.
Yeah.
Which is meant to be funny, but it just comes across as sort of, and it's meant to be a tribute to Denham Elliott, but it comes across as kind of just stupid comedy that's disrespectful almost.
Yeah.
You know? But actually, it's kind of, the scenes in the diner, it's kind of, yes, this has got a 1950s feel. Yes, I can see where you're going with this. And the motorbike chase, I mean, that's proper, that's an indie action sequence. You know what I mean? It's far-fetched, but there's a realism to it and a sense of fun to it. Yeah, exactly.
And then the next chase we get is that one straight for the jungle, which is a clusterfuck of real CG with flying monkeys.
The only part of that I really, really do like is when he gets the rocket launcher and he shoots the tree cane thing, and you do get that big saw flying over the trucks. I thought that's very Indiana Jones as well.
Yeah, there's moments of it in that jungle chase, but I find the jungle chase, I think, sums up Crystal Skull, like, in a nutshell for me, is that you have flashes of really good Indiana Jones in there, but then it's undercut by bullshit and nonsense. I mean, it's kind of, I know that everyone's ragged on the CGI, which is, when it's bad, it is shocking. For a Spielberg and Lucas production, it is kind of like, what happened, guys? Come on. But it's just a thing of kind of, it's the inanity that grinds me down, that throws me out of the fun. Oh yeah, having a sword fighting duel between, two vehicles. Yeah, great, go for it. Having Shia LaBeouf repeatedly banged in the bollocks. This is Family Guy stuff. You know what I mean? This is kind of stupid low rent humour of Dumb and Dumber. This shouldn't be in here. And then, we'll have some killer ants, and okay. And then, they'll climb up and in stupid fashion to get Kate Blanchett. Then one will go on the fly and she just flick it off. What? Why?
I didn't mind was it ants or termites? I could never really work it out.
Ants.
It was ants.
African killer ants, apparently.
I didn't mind them being there. That's a very, I don't know. I just liked them. I like the way that they used them, and even dragging the guy down screaming and hollering.
I like all that. It's just when they build a tower to crawl onto Kate Blanchett, then one goes on her leg and she flicks it off, and then they're gone.
Yeah,
that's what annoys me. All the other stuff with the ants, going berserk, I can go with that. That's classic jungle fare. But it's just that kind of the way it goes nowhere. It kind of, one will go on your thigh, I will crush it, stupid ant. And that's next. Eh? Well, I mean, there should have been a pan shot down. Well, the ants go, oh, fuck it. Let's go home. Didn't think that one through, did we, lads? Let's go back and watch Phase 4 again. We're missing something.
Right, so I think we need to press on to the prosecution now. Shall we?
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen of the court,
I'm certain that my learned colleague believes that I shall base my prosecution of this cinematic nugget on an overused complaint. He believes, I am sure, that I will make the mistake of lazy journalists and commentators the world over and attempt to summarise my disdain for the film by mentioning a certain example of white goods being employed to eye-raising purpose. But I won't. Likewise, the defence counsel will likely assume that I will point my finger at a certain actor, using his casting as a prime example of all that is wrong with the movie in question. Perhaps my opponent even expects me to compare said actor to a much-despised character from a galaxy far, far away, as so many others have done before me. But I shan't. And, knowing me as he does, having been my friend and associate for more than 5 years now, I would expect Mr. Thompson anticipates me speaking to the court with an inflamed temper, fists and teeth clenched as I employ hyperbole to label the defendant as a monstrosity, a cinematic abortion, or perhaps simply a huge steaming pile of excrement. And without a doubt, he anticipates the tirade about the inclusion of extraterrestrials in a franchise which hitherto has been based purely in fantasy. Yet this is not the case. For you see, nuking the fridge in a film which already contains trans-dimensional aliens and 50s greaser monkeys is hardly the most ridiculous thing you will see. Those aliens themselves are hardly offensive when you remember that the first movie in the same beloved franchise ended with Nazis having their faces melted off by the wrath of God. I have no need to attack or criticise Shia LaBeouf for his affable, low-impact brand of acting when the fault lies in the character, not the no longer famous man behind it. And I would never label this movie as an abomination, because a word like that implies passion. Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull does not inspire my passion. It is not a movie that I love to hate. It is not a movie that I hate at all. It is a movie which I watched once, disliked, and moved on from. In fact, had it not been for an episode of the Blackdog podcast reminding me that it was out there and providing me with an opportunity to gently mock the hosts of that show, people I count amongst my friends, I'd probably never have given it a second thought, and certainly not a second viewing. So bland is it in its composition, so flabby is it in its construction, that it merely marks a spot of beige in the fabric of my lifelong cinematic experience. Kingdom of the Crystal Skull doesn't make me angry. It makes me yawn. And that, people of the court, when levelled as an entry in a franchise who has previously made its protagonist synonymous with adventure, is the most damning argument I could possibly make. I would mount my prosecution by directing the court's attention to screenwriter David Koepp, a man whose cinematic oeuvre proves he can do better. The insistence on keeping Harrison Ford in the role he made famous, and the subsequent ageing of Indiana Jones, should not have caused any issues. A screenwriter whose career has included Death Becomes Her and the original Jurassic Park should have been able to write a sharp script on the subject of getting old, or becoming extinct. We could have had a family-friendly Unforgiven, with a retired indie picking up his spurs for one last adventure when his son, who naturally followed him into the family relic-snatching business, goes missing on a dig. Every theme, every cameo present in the version that made it to screen could still be in there, framed by a much better story. But instead of the David Koepp of Jurassic Park, we get the David Koepp of The Lost World, presenting an overlong, over-bloated and overreaching mess which might as well have been called Carry On Tomb Raiding for how seriously it takes its own source material. And the screenplay's issues don't end there. There are more inconsistencies, sketchy details and contradictions in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull than a Nigel Farage interview, from the selectively magnetic crystal skull of the title, which should have torn off at least 2 arms and stuck to half the set contents, and which seems to be deactivated by magically covering it with a thin bag, to the tiresome double-cross, triple-cross, quadruple-cross, burning-cross antics of Mac and the ever-wibbly motivations of the utterly forgettable villains. Does anybody remember what they wanted? Does anybody remember who they were? And the biggest problem of all is the script constantly tossing the viewer off-screen plot lines which would have made an infinitely more exciting film than the exercise in ennui being presented. So bland is this script, in fact, that it drapes a surprising array of bona fide supporting talent in muted beige. Did you know that Cate Blanchett is in this movie? And Ray Winstone? Not to mention Jim Broadbent and the legendary John Hurt? Look at those actors. Think about the earth-shattering and commanding roles that they have brought to life, and ask yourself how players of their caliber were unable to make anything even remotely interesting out of their characters. The answer is that even the greatest artist can't be held responsible when all they are handed to sculpt with is a blob of blue tack and a bent cotton bud. But the prosecution cannot lay all of the blame at the feet of one man. As poor as Kep's script was, let us not forget the responsibility of a movie's director. Steven Spielberg has famously blamed the perceived problems with the movie, that is to say, the most commonly highlighted flaws, on lifelong friend and collaborator George Lucas. He's admitted that he wasn't happy himself with the film's central MacGuffin, and claims to have had many arguments with Lucas about that and the ending. But he also stated, in an interview with Empire magazine, that, and I quote, "I am loyal to my best friend. When he writes a story he believes in, even if I don't believe in it, I'm going to shoot the movie the way George envisaged it. I'll add my own touches, I'll bring my own cast in, I'll shoot the way I want to shoot it, but I will always defer to George as the storyteller of the indie series. I will never fight him on that." I put it to the court that not only should Spielberg have fought George Lucas on the story points he was unhappy with, but it was his duty as director. By his own admission, he was not happy with the product being made. He knew it was substandard, but he made the movie anyway. He intentionally spent $185 million making a shoddy product because he didn't want to upset a man who has only ever created 2 franchises and who has spent the last 20 years running the more lucrative of the 2 into the ground. That, in anybody's book, is gross negligence, making Spielberg, the captain of this incredibly waterlogged ship, more culpable than anybody. You can point at the overabundance of CGI, you can complain about the impossible comedy animals and ludicrous set pieces, but if the story underneath has heart, those things don't matter. Scratch the surface of Crystal Skull, however, and all you'll find is a clockwork pacemaker that's slowly winding down. In conclusion, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull shouldn't be damned because of a poor casting choice, a silly special effect, or an ill-advised set piece. In fact, it shouldn't be damned at all. Instead, it should be handed back to Hollywood as failed homework, marked in red pen and bearing the message, "Must try harder." And with that, the prosecution rests.
Right, so what do you reckon to that one? His prosecution.
It's boring, which is his biggest crime, is essentially what it comes down to. An exercise in ennui. I mean, it's kind of an interesting tack to take that, you know, actually the worst crime of this film is it's dull, and dull in comparison to its compatriots in the series. It's an interesting defense, and, you know, I think it's got a lot of merit to it, but I think it inspires passion because it's so boring. The fact that it shouldn't inspire passion is kind of a bit weird. I know. It's like, well, if it doesn't inspire passion in your hatred of it, then you wouldn't really leap up to basically slap it down, would you really?
I'll say he is right about the script always alluding to some more interesting story.
Definitely.
Yeah.
There's a whole raft of things that kind of, oh, that would have been a better movie. Oh, that would have been a better movie.
Yeah, like when he's getting, when he meets that general. And he's always talking, you know, he was on so many tours and...
Yeah, working for the OSS. I mean... Yeah, I mean, there's that. I mean, there's the lovely line, which, funny enough, is given by Jim Broadbent, which I thought was kind of like, I think that was the line which they initially built the whole script off, and then just lost their way and forgot about it, which is where he turns around and he says, we seem to have reached a point where life stops giving us things and starts taking them away. And it's kind of like the implication of that line is that as you're getting older, you're obviously losing things. And it's got that whole Star Trek Wrath of Khan thing, sort of like a hero facing up to his mortality and moving on. And, and as Matt says, you could have had an Unforgiven style indie adventure with, he's not capable of fighting. He's not capable of doing this. He can get the job done, but it's going to cost him dear. And, and ground it in something more like that. And I think that line that Broadbent delivers essentially is the hook of the story, which just gets ignored. It's just like, that was the first line we wrote down as a plot synopsis, and then just went, actually, let's move on. Let's have some comedy monkeys.
Fill in your shortcomings in the script by comedy monkeys and groundhogs. Or gophers or whatever they go.
It's one that I think Crystal Skull is fairly tedious because there just isn't enough plot to, pace its set pieces such as they are. And what plot there is doesn't make sense. But for me, it's not just purely it's boring. It's the fact that the tone is wild and erratic. It's the fact that, as Matt alluded to, some of these bits are shockingly done. Really, just for a movie of this budget with the people involved, there is no excuse for kind of the 1980s TV set that is the sinking sand pit.
Oh God, that's awful.
It was like they went down the local garden centre and just set up. It looks like it's a broom cupboard of a set. Also the ruins as well they go to, I was calling it Aperture because it was that fucking small, that set. It was just kind of, then we have rubber snakes, then we have stupid jokes, and it's kind of, this is just all it's floundering around and sort of rolling on the floor and sort of kicking, and what an indie film should be. It's jostling it and spilling its tea. You know what I mean? It's just kind of, it's just horribly misconceived. That's what, I think it's not the fact that the story's nonsense. It's not the fact that it's boring. It's the fact that it is misconceived that really gets people's goat.
Yeah. There is potential in the story. There is, and as you said earlier, Jim, and as even Matt's, defense alludes to, is the fact that within this film, there is flashes of brilliance. The bits that, the 50s nostalgia thing is typical sort of early years Lucas, the American Graffiti stuff and all that kind of thing. And it's like, great. That's fine. You've made a fantastic setting, and sticking aliens in that is a great idea. But if you've got no passion for any of the rest of it, and if you can't decide whether or not it's going to be a doddery old bastard comedy, because, you got sort of like for everything that Ford does right, you'll undercut him in the script by having him go, "Oh, I thought I could have done that," or back in the 40s, I would have punched you in the mouth, or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's just like, okay, so you're going for the sort of ha ha ha, he's old, so you're going for a comedy, and then all of a sudden it's like 5 minutes later, it's a family drama around a campfire while 10,000 Russians politely stand back while they have a fucking argument. Like, it's like, so you're his son? You're his son? Yes, and I got on with my life. Oh, hold on, mother, put on a cup of tea. We're going to be sitting here for a while. It's a good episode of fucking EastEnders.
Yeah, then there's what's like the snake, the sand pit. Call it a rope. Call the snake a rope, and he'll grab it.
Yeah.
I would have preferred that if they did have a rope and he had imagined a snake.
Why don't you just get a branch off a tree?
Yeah. And while it's all going on, all the Russians are still sort of politely standing 10 feet off to the side, not actually coming and going, well, hold on, where's all our people? Where's all our captured, our captured bad guys? Gone. Yeah, sorry, go on, carry on.
And also, Indy's shouting at Oxley to go and to find help. They're in a jungle. The only people in this jungle are Russians. So who in the hell is he going to go out and find? Is he going to find those pygmy people who are built, bricked up in the wall?
Oh, God.
To come and help him? No, he's going to go straight to the Russians because they're just standing off camera having a fag.
Monkeys. That's the answer. I mean, that is the problem, isn't it? It's kind of like it misjudged. It's like all the ingredients are there.
It's a film made by a checklist. What makes an indie film?
Yeah, and that's the problem. It's like making a cake. You can do it if you've got all the ingredients, but if someone doesn't tell you the amounts, then that could end up a cake, or it could end up as a big puddle of goo that smells vaguely of egg. And that's pretty much what this is, because it's like, it's got the comedy elements of things like Crystal Skull. It's got the kind of Crystal Skull, Last Crusade. It's got the old man and son protege thing of Last Crusade. But then it's also trying to do the up against the Nazis, bad guys, end of the world kind of thing of Raiders. And then it tries to have its cake and eat it by going in for the, crazy natives are going to come and get you, with that bit of Temple of Doom when they're running around that old, what looks like fucking Mordor. With all those sort of crazy painted guys coming in and out of like different parts of the maze before they find the Crystal Skull itself. And then they all get scared off by Indy shooting his gun in the air. It's like, oh, really?
See, going on what Matt has actually said, he did say that it is a must-try harder movie. I totally agree with that. It is. It's lackluster. It's not what everyone wanted. Like you guys said before with the fridge scene. Once you get to that point, people tune out. I get that. On my first viewing, I started to tune out then, only because it wasn't the movie that I wanted to see. I kind of wanted to see Atlantis. And at that point, jumping around in the fridge wasn't what I wanted to see. I think, like you say, all the other things that they've mentioned in the movie would have made better movies than the movie that they came from. Just like in Berlin, Winstone says. You think, okay, well, I'd like to see that, to be honest. At least we'd get a bit of development on your character and your bond, and that would work quite nicely. But what Matt is saying, the major problem with this film is it's boring. I wouldn't say it's boring.
Really?
No, because I can sit down and quite enjoy this. It's an easy watch for me. I quite enjoy it. Taking the skull out of the bag and then everything becomes magnetized to it. I know that's not how things work. They shouldn't have done it like that, but I can forgive it. Do you know why? Because Indiana Jones on the screen. That's why it helps for me. The double crossing thing was stupid. That bugged the living hell out of me. But then again, I don't like Ray Winston. I really don't like him. I don't think John Hurt
he speaks really highly of you.
Yeah.
I haven't got a problem with that. But I didn't really like John Hurt in this either. I felt he's
just
out of place.
Isn't he?
Yeah, he doesn't work in it for me. I feel like they all got together and were like, oh, do you know what? We haven't made a movie. We haven't done this. Wouldn't it be great if we all got together and made a movie? Yeah, that'd be brilliant. What are we going to do? Well, we haven't done Indy 4 yet. Oh, okay, let's do that. That's the way I feel this happened. And
because most of the characters don't work because they're not written very well. There's no introduction to any of them. You don't know any of these people.
But Ray Winston doesn't suit an indie movie.
It's not so much that, as in he is a badly written person, or it alludes to things of what they used to do, but you don't actually know him. You don't know Jim Broadbent's character, or Oxley. You just don't know them. I wouldn't mind if you got a bit more backstory or something.
Yeah, but for me, with Ray Winstone being there, it feels like, oh, we've got him in there because he's Ray Winstone. It's the same as Mace Windu in the Star Wars prequels. It's only there because Samuel L. Jackson phoned up and said, "Can I have a part in your film?" And that's I don't like that.
I mean, there's something to that. I mean, because the thing is, there's a lot of the parts in this where you think, well, if you took them and replaced them with characters from, say, Raiders or Temple of Doom or The Last Crusade, you'd actually have a stronger movie because you'd be invested in those characters from the previous films. So you switch Jim Broadbent for Denham Elliott. You switch Ray Winstone's character for, say, John Rhys Davies' Salah. Yeah. Now, if he turned up and he was Indy's friend all the way through, part 1 and part 3, and you think, well, okay, fine, and then he pulls a double cross at the end, it's like, fucking hell, that's got an impact.
Yeah.
And, same goes for John Hurt's character. If instead of being just some random bloke, you actually had him as being the mentioned Karen Allen's father, Abner Ravenwood, who gets mentioned in Raiders, and I think he gets mentioned once in a sort of a passing thing in Last Crusade. Or if you even made him the Sean Connery character. If you put Sean Connery in John Hurt's place, going off his nuts because he's really old, that sort of thing. And again, it would tie back into that whole thing of, the main theme is age. And so, Dad's gone crazy. He's in the forest helping Russians, talking to trees and waving around in a fucking shawl, it's, Dad has gone mad. Oh, that's terrible. It's a terrible thing to see. And it's but, you get one last hurrah with, Henry Jones and Indy working together. And there would be more sort of impact with all of it. But the fact is they just replaced all those characters, all those potential characters with people you just didn't know. So you have no investment.
That could have been so good with the reveal of Mutt's identity.
Yeah.
With Connery and Ford both double taking.
Yeah.
He's your son!
Yeah. You had a son? I've got a grandson? You could just imagine how it would go. And that's what I'm saying. There's so much potential in just changing the actors and the characters involved, but every single one gets swapped out because David Koepp, who, just can't write sequels. He can't. The Lost World is fucking terrible. He can't. All he does is he takes the original films, chops them up into little bits, sticks them on his fridge on a magnet, and then just swaps the bits around. And then says, that'll do, that's a script. Sorry. I'll sit down. Sorry, Your Honour.
It's true, though. The thing is, he doesn't even do it well, though.
Yeah.
No. That's the annoying thing, because, as I alluded to earlier, Last Crusade borrows heavily from the first Raiders film.
Yeah.
To the point that it is almost a rerun. But that at least works. Because you do have this dynamic with Connery. For me, Last Crusade is, Connery just walked away with that. Yeah. If Connery wasn't in it, people wouldn't think nearly as highly as Last Crusade. I'm very sure of that. Because, I say this film is toxic. It taints the other ones. Temple of Doom, which we rewatched recently for Blackdog. That is awful.
It is.
That is awful. That commits many of the same crimes as this does. However, at least it looked good and it didn't look cheap. But perversely though, Crystal Skull, Indy is actually a little bit more like Indy rather than the charmless sod he is in Temple of Doom. And it's nice to see him actually have a bit of warmth and humour, which mostly in Last Crusade is just being grumpy and sweaty. And it wasn't for Connery's twinkle to be the comic relief to that grumpy sweatiness, we were going, oh, who is this cunt?
Yeah, I mean, I can see your point. I don't necessarily entirely agree with it, but I have to say that for me, yes, the chemistry between Connery and Ford carries that film without a doubt. But that's the point. It's like Ford's indie portrayal kind of goes between cocky swagger and grumpy put-outness of a man trying to get his kids off his lawn. And it's always been that way. But the thing is, with something like Last Crusade, the script also is well written and the direction is tight and everyone is having fun. In this one, it just feels like everyone turned up for the paycheck. Very much so. I mean, it's kind of, I think, going back to Matt's thing, it's boring. Well, no, it's worse. It's just worse than boring. It's shoddily made. I mean, if you did a blind test and you showed, a selection of iconic films and this to, maybe a non-Crystal Skull alien who just happened to visit, they wouldn't peg this as a Spielberg movie. No. Because it's just too badly done. Frankly, on every conceivable level, there is these poor shots, there's poor cinematography, there's poor effects, it's poorly paced, it's absolute dog shit. I'm sorry, it's just terribly put together. Temple of Doom is also an atrocity, but it's an atrocity, for many of the similar reasons, but it has a polish at least to it. You know what I mean? That has no one for Indy to work against, and he comes across as just being a bit of a charmless sod who just happens to be there and doesn't really give a toss and just blunders his way through. But the direction at least has verve. There is, it is well photographed. It is well staged in the main. Whereas this is just kind of, some of the scenes I've, watching it in Blu-ray, thought it looked so terrible. I couldn't believe it. It was kind of, Spielberg, the man, known for his cinematography, for being able to handle special effects. He can't shoot a dialogue scene anymore. No. And the fact that some of the sets, as I said, look so bloody cheap. I'm still harping back to it, but I cannot believe, how shoddy some aspects of this production are. It's kind of like Spielberg, it's kind of, did he literally just pay to put his name on it? And, he let the Gophers direct it. I honestly, that wouldn't surprise me.
He should have had the balls to turn around and say, no, we're not doing this, and no, we're not doing that.
But what would he have actually changed? That's the point. That's the one thing I can't get my head around. It's like how, I've read the, Frank Darabont script, which came out, a while back, and it was like, it's a good idea, but it's still not a great script. It's still, I admire Darabont. But the script itself is still not a very good script, and it's kind of like it feels rushed. But also there's story points in it that turn up in the final film, and you just think, okay, so these story points either were ones that were agreed by Ford and Spielberg and Lucas and had to be in the script by default. In which case, what would have changed if Spielberg had put his foot down a bit more? And given that the film would never have happened if one of them dissented, I don't think Spielberg's defense of, I was just doing it for my mate, really holds much water, as Matt says. But the thing is, I don't think anything would have changed. I don't think he would have got that much of a better film. I mean, he might have been better shot if he had cared, but frankly, you know, I mean, the one thing I did appreciate was the fact that it kind of had that look of an early sort of 80s movie in its palette and tone and stuff like that, but then really after that it is just dog shit with the way it's all laid out and that sword fight on between Blanchett and LaBeouf, where it looks like they actually managed to travel back in time and get worse special effects for that rear projection.
Yeah.
Seriously. I was
that
pretty
looks horrible.
Yeah, I was pretty much expecting the film to suddenly sort of jump behind them and then loop to something like a train tunnel to Brighton and then jump
Police
again.
Squad style.
Yeah, exactly.
Roller coaster.
Yeah, exactly. Suddenly you're on a roller coaster. Next minute you're in a women's shower, and then 5 minutes later there's a chicken walking past, or you know, a sort of field, or you know, some sea. You know, it was just really poor.
So Tom and Jerry would have done better then.
Yeah, definitely. But
Also,
in fact, yeah, go on. Sorry.
Also, they're throwing that crystal skull around. It's just like a pillowcase, or, you know, a pillar. Because there's no weight in it. It doesn't make a sound when it flies from, like, car to car.
And again, it doesn't magnetise, like, keys out of the locks, or the sword out of her hand, or...
It's wrapped in mysterious lead-lined cloth.
Yeah. Even though it's able to magnetise gold, fuck off.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Well, that's the thing. It's not true magnetism, was it?
It was unobtainium. It was do what it needs to do-ium.
Yeah, and whenever it wants to as well. But I did read up on it a little bit, and it was meant to be. It can magnetise any metal whatsoever, including gold.
A notoriously unmagnetic material.
In that case, you know, when they find the crystal skull in that tomb, which is full of gold, and they, you know, it's wall-to-wall gold, and the second they open the wrappings, it's still not magnetic. Did they just disturb the body? I think they disturb the body, don't they? And
Yeah,
then
they
it's
lift the body up and give it to LaBeouf. Yeah.
and then it becomes magnetic.
Yeah.
He drops coins, doesn't he?
Yeah. So the whole of that gold just flew straight through Harrison Ford, you know.
Yeah.
Coin slicing off his head.
That mask, that gold mask that LaBeouf was originally holding.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. And again, it comes back to the main real point, that you're not engaged enough in the story to overlook these inconsistencies, which are, you know, replete throughout all of the films. You know, but, you know, in those other films, you're going along with the story, or the charm of the actors, or the pace of the film, you know, or the inventiveness of some of the set pieces. Whereas in this, you're just sitting there going, why the fuck is the gold climbing up this metal body plate? Hold on, shouldn't the metal body plate be following the gold? Just like...
It's like, what's it called? Like in Raiders, he hangs onto the outside of a submarine and goes for miles. I never really noticed that, really.
No. Or the fact that the Ark has the power to burn off the Nazi symbol on the outside of the wood. Well, if it's got the power like that, well, then why do you need to open it? But, you know, again, things like that don't really matter. Because by that point, you've gone through some pretty hairy action. The script has sparkled all the way, and everyone's on top form. But, all right, whatever, you know, that's just an oversight that you come out of the cinema and go, yeah, okay, never mind. Whereas here, you're sitting in the cinema going, oh, fuck off. Your Honour.
It just gets to a point where everything just stops making any sort of sense. It's like the skull activates, all our cast are sucked up into a giant fan, but then the next scene, they're all just dancing around in the ruins quite happily, but Ray Winston's still getting sucked into the vortex. Why? And why do you say, don't worry, Jonesy, it'll be alright?
But then doesn't let go of the whip.
Yeah, what bollocks is this? It's just like, but by that point, you're just going, just kill me now, because this is, you shouldn't be watching an Indiana Jones film going, this makes Tomb Raider 2 Creative Life look really good.
Yeah, but that scene as well. That's another one of bad character. Right, they run out of that place. Mac has tripled agent him for the 15th time. And at this point, I would not have gone to try and save him.
No, I'd have gone, see ya.
Yeah.
That's your cue for an 80s quip.
Yeah. You wouldn't...
Nice to see you getting sucked off for a change. Something like that. Something really witty and classy like that.
Yeah. You wouldn't have attempted to save him, would you? I would have just stood there and laughed.
Yeah, definitely.
But no, he shouts purposely to rescue him.
Yeah. Well, that's what heroes do. But the problem is, at this point, it's like, well, if heroes were going to do that, then why does he stand there like a lemon and let Kate Blanchett, the exposition machine, get zapped in the eyes? I mean, there's so much stuff where it's just like so inconsistent. And the other thing I can't get past is the fact that the alien, when it finally does manifest, looks like Wilfred Brimble from Steptoe and Son. It looks like it's leaning forward and going, Harold!
But what is that all about? They've got these, 12 aliens, skull,
It was 13 skeletons.
But why did they have to all join together to make one alive alien?
Yeah, what were they
because
waiting
they
for?
worked as one, didn't they? They worked as one, as a collective consciousness, and so the way that they could transmit all their memories and stuff, and all their knowledge, was to join together.
But they were dead.
Yes.
And then, also, they joined together to become alive?
And obviously they weren't entirely...
I think it was a job share kind of thing.
and they were also down by at least 2, because one's sitting in Russia, one from New Mexico's missing, and the one that was left back in the base as well.
No, they're not part of it, are they?
Elton, are you doing that Charlize Theron's mother thing again? Are you taking a leap?
No, I'll do that later. No, all 13 skeletons were in that room, because it was on a painting as well, wasn't it? And all they needed to do was find the correct skull to go onto that body, which was missing. They were already there. The ones that they'd already found were the ones from the Roswell incident and such. They weren't part of that collective 13.
So they were pointless again.
Yeah.
They were pointless to the story.
What?
It's like having 2 sets of keys, and one's not for your house, and the other one's...
No, they weren't pointless. They were there, so you would turn around and say, okay, right, this is all about aliens at the beginning of the film. And then by the time you actually saw the spaceship flying off, then you were, okay, I knew it was about aliens, and there's an alien spaceship and Indiana Jones standing there. I can deal with that.
Yeah, but
that's why they were in the beginning.
You would have got the alien bit when they found the crystal skull.
No, because everyone else would have been really, really pissed off if you didn't see half an alien body or something else explaining the aliens, and then just an alien ship flying off at the end.
So hold on. So the supposed alien in Russia and the supposed alien that the Russians had from New Mexico and the one that they left back at camp have nothing to do with the aliens in the temple.
The one they left back at camp was the very first one that they were hunting in Area 51.
Why were they hunting it then?
I don't know why they were hunting it.
That's why it's pointless.
Thank you.
No. That's the thing. It's not pointless. It's there to show you that, hi guys, there's an alien in this. You're going to be seeing this sort of stuff. So get prepared for when it turns up at the end. If they didn't show that and they just turned up at the end, then it would have been, oh, okay, and George Lucas stuck aliens at the end.
No,
but they showed the Lost Ark as a painting on a wall, and had Indy explain it on a chalkboard in Raiders, and then it showed up at the end. And
but it's a box.
It's a box with the power of God and some alien-y, ghostly, spectral totty that turns into skeletons and melts your face.
No, it was a box. That's the thing. It was a box.
Yeah, okay. I mean, all I'm saying is, if you have a whole set piece just to say, hey, there's aliens in it, if you have a whole chase around a warehouse that you blow up, that's super secret, have a big nuclear explosion, and have them get away, all just to say that there's aliens in it, then you're doing the script wrong.
They didn't have a nuclear explosion to wipe out all the...
No, I never said they did. I'm just saying that set piece, that whole thing from the start of Area 51 and the chase ends with a big nuclear explosion. It's a crescendo of an action scene, and it's the end of that scene. If you do that, then you've made a big point that whatever was in that box that they wanted was so important they were willing to risk being blown up by a nuclear explosion to get it. And then you're telling me actually all it was there for was just to say, hey, there's aliens in this movie.
Right. Oh, okay, take that scene out and then have...
That's 45 minutes of the film.
No, but what I'm saying...
Make it shorter.
Take that scene out and then just have aliens at the end, and everyone would... I know everyone pans this movie anyway, but it would have been buried. It would have gone underneath Transformers 2.
They could have had... No. Right, seems how it's about the Roswell incident, they could have found the ship, or parts of the ship, which alludes to Akator and the rest of it.
Yeah.
You don't have to have another alien, which is pointless to the story.
I think part of the problem with the Crystal Skull thing is kind of it has a thing that's actually common to actually all the indie films, which is, the titles are wrong. The first one, it should have been Indiana Jones and the Lost Ark. Not this vague Raiders. Who are they? It sounds like a football team are involved. No, wrong title. Second one, well, it's not really a Temple of Doom. It's more a bit of racist inconvenience. The third one, I hate to break it to you guys, but the Crusades weren't about looking for the Holy Grail.
No.
That's wrong. This, it's kind of, well, there isn't a kingdom, and the Crystal Skull, and there is a point to this, that what sets people up to be against the aliens is we all know about the real Crystal Skulls. Certainly everyone who kind of probably in England and America who saw the indie films at the cinema and grew up with them, we all remember the spooky real Crystal Skull on Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious World.
Yeah.
And creating and weird Inca rites and Aztecs and cigarettes and human sacrifice and tearing out hearts. Then you get into this film and they wheel out the Crystal Skull and you go, oh shit, it's aliens. You know what I mean? It's kind of, if they call it, Indiana Jones and the Saucer Men, the aliens, we wouldn't get half the stick, I think. Well, they get a certain amount of stick for being badly integrated into the storyline, but I think it's kind of, the title sets you up for a very different film to the one they deliver, and it's kind of, well, that isn't even the right Crystal Skull, you tools.
And the other thing with the aliens as well is that they do a very good job of setting them all out quite early when Indy's being interviewed by the McCarthy era G-men.
Yep.
When they're sort of saying, you went out there 1949, Roswell, and he goes, oh, I was just taken out there and I wasn't allowed to talk to anyone and I saw bits of a ship or something like that. It's like, okay, it's all based around Roswell mythology. Brilliant, we're there. But
right,
you
I'm
had...
going to stop you there 1 second. I'm going to swap computers. Right, so where were we?
I don't know.
I know we're all ranting about pointless aliens.
Mm.
So I think really it's time now to get to our thoughts on this and start ragging on it, I think.
Hey. Gentlemen, start your engines.
Right, one thing that really got me, when they escape from the Russians' camp, they run inside a tent. And then Mutt, he throws that lamp at the door of the tent and it starts on fire. So why didn't the Russians just run down the side of the tent or the back of the tent?
Or shoot the tent.
Because the next second they're running into the sandpit.
I just had a picture of Hans Gruber saying, "Shoot the tent."
Shoot the tent.
That's just really got me, as in, you're going to escape by running inside a tent and the Russians don't follow. Because it's on fire. Well, no, just run around the back of it, because they're now going to run out the back.
It's a well-known fact that Russian soldiers are basically they really appreciate privacy, so they never. It's bad luck to approach another man's tent from the rear.
Yes.
Oh, that's terrible. Sorry.
All right then. Seems like Elton is a bit of a, you do quite like this film, don't you, Elton?
Yes, I do. Yeah. Okay, you want my opinions on this film?
Yes, I'm going to go for your opinion on this film.
Okay, right. I agree with Matt with it being a must-try harder movie. I don't agree with him saying that it's a yawn fest, though, or makes it boring. There are many bits I don't like. I don't like Ray Winston in this movie. I'm not a big fan of Marion in this movie either.
Well, basically, she's only in here as somebody Indy's concerned with and going to help the Russians. But he helps the Russians before without Marion.
Mm.
Yeah, it's true, but it's just silly stuff like when they've come down the waterfalls and she's holding onto the steering wheel.
Fucking waterfalls.
I think at the heart of this film that there is a pretty okay indie movie.
Okay. Sorry, carry on.
It's okay. Yeah, I there's something about I quite like. I think it was because I went into this movie thinking it was going to be a big pile of dog crap that everyone else says. Yes, I know everyone else says that. That's fine. That's their opinion. But I didn't go to the cinema to see this. I saw it on DVD maybe a year or so after it was released on DVD. And when I saw it, I was pleasantly surprised, I suppose. I think because people had ragged on the aliens, because people had ragged on the fridge, it was alright. I didn't mind it. It didn't offend me at all. And so I enjoy it as an indie movie. I see it as a movie and more, Temple of Doom, I see more of that as an EP of a movie compared to an actual movie itself. It is a movie, but it's not quite the business, is it? And this is just one step up above from that, I suppose. There's really good sets, scenes even with the motorbike around the library. I love that bit. I really, really do. The bit where I find that this movie falls down is the Russians. They're not Nazis, are they? And so they're not as bad as Nazis. Nothing is as bad as Nazis. And so you turn around and say, oh, Nazis want to rule the world by thinking into your brain and them making you become one of us. That's the scariest thing in the world. Russians say it, it's not quite as scary. And so that for me is where it falls down in its story itself. But I'm not offended by this movie. I can take it on the chin. I quite like it.
Okie dokie. I don't know. Let's see what Lee thinks.
I fucking hate this film. The thing is, right, let's get a few things out of the way. One, I love Raiders Lost Ark. Definitely one of my top 5 films of all time, just because the time I saw it, the way the film's structured, I just adore that movie. Temple of Doom, could take or leave. Last Crusade, I have a fondness for it, as I probably revealed by now. And, and I enjoy it. This Crystal Skull is basically a charmless, vacuous rerun of greatest hits without an understanding of why any of the stuff in the other films worked. And I think it's summed up for me in the introduction of Karen Allen's character, Marion. When she turns up and she comes out of that tent, shouting and screaming like she did in Raiders Lost Ark, get your hands off me, sort of thing. Then she does the sassy hands on hips, Indiana Jones, I knew you'd come walking back through my door kind of thing from Raiders. And then she does this kind of wide-eyed, oh yeah, you think you're so sassy kind of look. And it looks like an out-of-work actor at a convention doing their greatest hits. And to me, that sums up the whole of Crystal Skull. It's a greatest hits of indie with people well past their prime trying to do stuff which feels half-hearted, cynical, bland, pointless, and so poorly written in places that you just think, who are you? Why this is stuff happening? Why should I even care? And so the result is not only a film that is tedious, but it kind of, as Jim said earlier, it kind of takes a ridiculously large dump on the rest of the films by focusing on the ridiculousness of points that it's cribbed from those films. So you look at, like you say, you look at some of the ridiculous stunts and you go, oh, actually, they had those in Temple of Doom. And it makes you go back and retroactively question the other films, which are perfectly fine and are, in some cases, absolutely astoundingly great. And the reason it does that is because Crystal Skull literally takes all those pieces that worked, puts them all together in a sort of Scrabble bag of crap, and then says, oh, there you go, but you liked all these bits before, you liked all these things before, so why don't you like them now? And then you start to question it, and then you start to go back and pick apart the other films, because this one's so fucking bad. And Harrison Ford looks like he's one run away from a heart attack. He can't act in any other way other than grumpy and cynical. He hasn't got the charm or clearly the investment in the character anymore. He's doing it purely for the money. John Hurt is as away with the fairies as his character is. Karen Allen just looks so pleased to even be employed. Shia LaBeouf, well, you can see what Shia LaBeouf is. He's basically a CGI effect that escaped Roger Rabbit style into the real world. And Cate Blanchett, she got an accent that was so terrible that they felt they had to bring it up in the script. The way you're chewing on your W's, I'd say you're from the Ukraine. Yes, very perspective. Oh, there's Klingons on the starboard bow, Captain. Woo, woo, woo. It's like, what the where on earth did you come from?
Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And so then, I'm a big proponent of CGI. I think that when it's used well, it can be brilliant and flawless and seamless and you never see it. But in this case, it's done purely to make things CGI. And that feels like excess and overindulgence. So you get stuff that looks terrible, like the fucking sword fight and chase through a jungle chased by half the cast of Jumanji. And you get like ants that look like they've walked straight out of, some Xbox game. You get the gophers, which are not there for any other reason than to make you laugh, and they fail miserably at that. The only time there ever feels like there's any passion is in the 50s styling, which is obviously Lucas's favourite era. As if you go back and watch, American Graffiti, you go, okay, the guy loves that era. And so, the way the camera sweeps over the cars at the beginning of the film, the way that race happens, the way the chase happens through, with the fight in the diner and all that kind of stuff, that feels like you could have lifted the whole lot from American Graffiti and just plonked it back down in there, and it would have gelled seamlessly. And that you feel the love there, but then that's the problem. Everything else feels hollow and shallow and pointless and cynical. And the worst bit of all was I saw this at a screening, and then, because I didn't manage to get tickets for a friend of mine who really wanted to see this film, I had to pretend I hadn't seen it and go see it with him at a midnight screening. And it's like, I couldn't believe I'd see this film twice in 24 hours, and it's genuinely an awful film. It's so poorly made. And when you realise how many people who are really talented are involved, you realise why people rag on this film. There is no reason for this film to be bad. It just shouldn't be bad. It shouldn't be mediocre. It shouldn't be boring. It should be, a failed attempt at trying to reach for greatness. Fine, you can fail but succeed at failing almost, if you know what I mean. You can put the effort in there. You can feel the love for something and still have it fail. But this had so many talented people in it, so many people at the top of their game, and it still turned into a turgid pile of old arse. And, inconsistent, boring, dull. You just open a dictionary, find the word disappointment, stick that in a thesaurus, and you just read the rest of it off. Because that's all that Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is. It's as fucking transparently bollocks as the skull itself.
Okay.
And there you go. And I rest your honour.
Jim?
I really do just dislike this film. It's kind of, it's one that's actually, gone from disappointing to now me actually really, really hating it every time I have to watch it.
We're covering it again on Blackdog next week.
And it's just, as I allude to, I think the worst thing about it isn't all the many things wrong with it we've covered, but it's the fact that it has put a tarnish on the other films in the series. And when I almost daren't go back and rewatch Raiders now because I might find things wrong with that as well. I doubt it, but it's kind of Temple of Doom. I mean, that isn't a good outing for Indy. Last Crusade, as I still do really like, but it has lost something, and it's largely due to the fact that when Last Crusade came out, it was like two generations of action stars meeting. It was, old boy Connery and new up-and-coming exciting Harrison Ford. But Ford's post-career and kind of his turn in this, it's kind of, you just think, yeah, he's not actually as iconic as he was when Last Crusade came out. And that does rob the film of a certain something. But this is kind of like, I mean, I think in many ways Temple of Doom is equally as bad, because they're both films are trading on the name, but really both feel like rip-offs of Raiders. However, this is just, considering, there wasn't any pressure to put this out. The script went through numerous versions and they still couldn't get it right, and they still just turned out something that is just, it's substandard from everyone involved. Nobody, technical, cast, whatever, no one comes out shining. It's just a really poor job, and it pains me because it's kind of, Indy deserves better than this, folks. He really does. I mean, the poor sod's had a rough ride. But this is kind of, it's not only just a substandard effort, it's also a superfluous one because, Last Crusade did just kind of, it felt that had closure and rounding off the story. And, this is just kind of, this shows you seeds of where it could have gone, and they could have revived it and brought him back as an older character, and it could have been cool. But then it just, it just hits you in the bollocks with jungle plants and gophers. It's just, it's just so, frustrating and annoying. And it's one of those, it's kind of, did we learn nothing from Phantom Menace? Apparently not. But there's a kind of, it's one of those things, like Phantom Menace, it's one of those things, it's kind of, I think nearly everyone who saw this film could have wrote a better version of it. And to be honest, watching it again this time and seeing some of the shoddy shots and sets, I dare say most of us could have filmed it better as well. I mean, as I said, when I first saw it, I knew I was in trouble from the opening segue. We go into a gopher. It's kind of, it's like an orchestra strikes up the first chords of a symphony and it's off key. It's kind of, oh dear. And it just doesn't get any better. I mean, there's points where I can get on board with it. I mean, I know Shia LaBeouf gets a lot of stick, but I say 3 viewings in, I think he might be the best thing in it. Because kind of like the character of Mutt is, he's quite fun, kind of, he's horribly treated, as the script horribly treats everyone, but kind of teaming Indy up with some, a younger version of himself who's unknowingly his son, who's an academic, who is just a smart ass, and he's kind of his antithesis. That's got such great great concepts. And I think, in the diner scene, you do see there's a spark of chemistry between Ford and Mr. LaBeef. There's a hint of it there, and 3 viewings in, I'll take whatever one I can get from this film, because he's precious little else. Because, every time I get on board with it, again, it throws a gopher at me.
Yeah.
Or Ray Winston.
Oh, God. Like for me, this film is so lackluster. It is, like I said before, it's a checklist movie. What makes Indy iconic? Oh, it's a man with a whip. He goes and finds treasure. He travels the world. But there's just no passion or soul behind it. They just sort of chucked it into a hat and just pulled out the moment. Oh, we need a whip sequence, which ends up with him breaking his hips in the front of a lorry. It's inconsistent. Like, you've got all the magnetism bits. That's inconsistent with everything. If they didn't even set out rules of what these things do, as you have in, movies. They break their own rules as they carry on going. The characters are just there. You don't know them. There's no backstory to them. Well, little backstory, apart from, and it's always alluding to better and greater stories you'd really want to watch. Like, what did they do in Berlin when he was we were double agents? Yeah, that sounds great. Indiana Jones in World War II. But no, we didn't get any. You just got action scene after action scene, which are not that well done. The chase for the jungle is just as silly as the minecarts in the Temple of Doom. And that ended in water, didn't it, as well?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, but that was with a thimbleful, which you get like a sea. A river of water. This got fucking 3 waterfalls. And a tree.
Did anyone else have the feeling that someone had a theme park ride design in mind when that sequence was cobbled together?
Yeah. Universal Studios proudly presents the Indiana Jones Crystal Skull ride.
Yeah, you could have like a roller coaster, then it goes into water.
And everything smells vaguely of piss and deep heat.
Oh dear.
Sorry, Your Honour, carry on.
Wow, I think I'm done now. Right, so let's rag on the bits we hated, shall we?
Why not?
What really stuck in your crack? Who wants to go first?
Well, there's this bit that goes between credits at either end.
Well, you could say the bit before the credits even start.
Yeah.
It's pretty dire.
We're just getting out of the box.
Yeah.
That's the bad bit. Taking it out of the case and putting it into the...
Realising you haven't been gypped on the indie box set.
Yeah. My box set only contains 3 films.
And a novelty coaster.
No, and extras. And just the extras. And my copy of The Crystal Skull cost me £1 from eBay. But it cost the bloke £2.70 to send it to me.
He really wanted rid of that, didn't he?
I know.
Yeah. Do you think you could have haggled and have him drive it round personally?
Probably.
From France.
Yeah. So, he was down on the deal.
No, he was up on the deal. He was very much up on the deal. I mean, if there was one thing I could point to and just say I just totally hated it, I think it would have to be the central MacGuffin. The fact that it makes little or no sense, regardless of whether or not it's an alien. It could have been a bowl of magic water, really. But the fact of the matter is, it doesn't add anything to the film. It adds no sense of tension. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't threaten the world, despite no matter how many times Kate Winslet breaks out the Chekhov accent and tells you that it's going to be a terrible, terrible thing. But it's like, which kind of obviously sounds like it's just gone between Mexican and Welsh. South African. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's just that's possibly the biggest crime of all is the fact that you have no stakes. You have no feeling that anything in this film matters. And the Crystal Skull itself embodies that.
Because basically, the skull is the key to getting Akatul.
Yeah. Well, yeah, which will give you supposedly powers.
And then it's the car key for the spaceship.
Yeah.
That's what he wanted. He wanted his keys back.
Yeah. and at the end of the day, the worst thing is with all of that is there's no proof that any of this is true. The only thing you get is Indy kind of trying a staring contest with a skull. So if you had a film with Indy staring at a magnet and then just saying, well, never mind, the Earth is saved, after just turning the lights off and on 3 times, I think you'd be just about having the same experience.
I've just figured it out. I know what happened in Berlin. He got shot in the head, and then he got a metal plate in his head, and now he's sat in like a mental home. And people keep sticking magnets to the side of his head, and that's what the whole film is. It's just the magnet pulling.
Are you saying that this is a kind of sidequel to the One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest?
Yeah.
And he's actually one of the inmates in the corner going off for medication time all the time?
Yeah, with a magnet stuck in his head.
Yeah, getting a bit of electrotherapy.
Yeah.
Nice. Makes more sense.
Right, so I know we could rag on this film. So,
what's the worst bit?
There's so many worse bits.
Ray Winstone is pretty terrible in it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some shocking performances all round, and it kind of, I'm not sure it's him or Kate Blanchett who's the worst, but they're both sporting ridiculously ham accents, and the lines they get are just awful. I mean, it's Ray Winstone's sort of, "Hey Jonesy," that gets me, because he sounds like the spiff off Dad's Army. And every time he says Jonesy, I'm expecting Clive Dunn to appear. You don't like him, and consequently, actually, Harrison Ford, veers dangerously close to Jonesy territory in that. Don't panic! Don't panic! It's just a bedtime story.
Yeah. Don't worry, kid. None of it's true. Really? So you saw the wrath of God kill all those Nazis and you don't believe in a magic skull? Right. Gotcha.
Well, the other thing that really annoys me is kind of, it looked bad in the cinema. It looks even worse on Blu-ray. The snake.
Oh God!
I mean, if my telly was bigger, I swear I could read the "Made in Taiwan" that's stamped on it, because it is just it's just like pantomime. It's just terrible joke shop tat, and the way after he's done with it, Mutt just chucks it over his shoulder in a comedy fashion, and it's just kind of like, no, just. You couldn't even cut to a real snake slithering away, you cheap bastards. But I know probably they weren't allowed to bring a snake into the garden centre where they filmed it.
The kiddies' playground, whereas he was sinking into the wood chips underneath the swings.
Oh, it's just terrible. I think this needs to go to judgment time, I think.
Okay. I'm wearing the black hat.
We'll start with you, Elton.
Judgment, okay. I understand everyone's disappointment with this movie. I understand it wasn't the movie everyone wanted it to be. I get that it bores people. I get that it was poorly paced, and there's the MacGuffin that doesn't work all the way through the movie. I get swinging monkeys and swinging Shia LaBeouf piss people off.
You're gonna just stick a butt on the end, aren't you?
I dearly hate Ray Winston in this movie as well. I get that it's not what everyone wanted it to be, but I don't mind this movie. I could watch it again. I've got no problems in sitting down and enjoying it because it's an Indiana Jones movie. I can quite happily sit there and go, yeah, what one shall I watch?
High Road to China with Tom Selleck.
Obviously, Raiders would be my first choice, and the third one, I can't remember the name of it. The Crusade would be the second choice. But it's just an indie movie. It does things that I like in indie movies. It's got the excitement. Yes, it almost comes close to being a good movie. But I enjoy it for it just being an indie movie. So I'm afraid going on the must try harder thing, I agree with, but I'm going to give it a pass.
Sorry, I just spat my tea out.
I wasn't surprised. Jim?
This film's going down. There's no two ways about it. And I recommend we put a warrant for the arrest of Temple of Doom as well, because that's fucking shite as well. People say there's only 3 movies of the Indiana Jones franchise. No, for me there's 2.
Plus a side call made by the BMP.
Well, listen, I mean, in fairness to Crystal Skull, it doesn't have Willie in it, shrieking. It doesn't have Short Round in it, and it isn't racist. So your Temple of Doom deserves to go down with this. And, I'll just have Raiders and Last Crusade, thank you. It's a nice double bill. And that'll be fine. But this, it's kind of, it kind of annoys me more than Temple of Doom, in fact. Well, because of the recent review of Temple of Doom, I just sat all the way through going, oh, Jesus, this is awful. This is shite. Oh, God, bloody hell, that's really dodgy as well. Oh, and shut that woman up! whereas this isn't as consistently annoying per se, but in fact it's more annoying because this film sort of lets me get on board and then kicks me off, and then I try and get on board, then it kicks me off again, and it's kind of it's that kind of what it could have been, just really, really great with me. So, no, it's got to go, I'm afraid. It deserves hard time.
But it's got Jim Robinson in it. Come on.
No, Jim Robinson's dad. He was disgraced after that, and he moved to Australia, to Erinsborough, and raised a family. And his young son, Jim Robinson, whose house would later become a home for every passing waif and stray in Ramsay Street, until he was forced to leave and roam the world and take a succession of jobs under assumed names. Such is the legend of Jim Robinson.
I want to watch that movie.
Yeah, the Ballad of Jim Robinson.
Lee?
Well, Jim is right. It doesn't have Willie in it, but it is a load of old cock. I mean, I think this film deserves to get rolled over by a 60-foot boulder. It's, people can apologise for it, and you know what? I genuinely hope those people seek the help and attention that they need. Elton. But at the end of the day, this film is the very definition of lackluster filmmaking, made purely for no other reason than profit. And that is the end of it. It is a hollow pursuit in every way, and needs to be just thrown into a pungy sticks, is it? Pungy sticks pit? Yeah. Yeah, it needs to be thrown into one of those. Or maybe, left in the, the slowly crumbling temple of the Holy Grail, with nothing but an old knight to talk to it for a very long time about how things were different in his day, and in the sort of 10th century, wagon wheels were bigger.
Right. I consider this film to be very lackluster and deserves to be hung, drawn, quartered, impaled on light-activated spikes before falling onto a floor where darts hit the side of it, that it can crawl its way out and get run over by a big boulder, then some Indian bloke can try and rip its heart out before it is beheaded by the breath of God and can't spell Jehovah and falls for the floor.
Jehovah begins with an I.
He said Jehovah, stone him!
Nobody is to stone anyone until I blow this whistle.
So, it is guilty as sin. So, I'm sorry, Martin.
He chose poorly.
And Mr. Matt Dillon.
He has chosen wisely.
Yes. What he said.
Sorry.
That's another case over with. So, I wonder who's going to be our next Witless for the Defence.
Oh, sorry.
Lee, have you got anything to say?
Thunderbirds, motherfuckers, peace out!
Yes. We are going to be covering Will Riker's Thunderbirds.
Are you joking?
Nope. Being defended by
Hello!
Lee Medcalf.
And are you seriously defending this?
Yeah. Yes.
So we have a Black Dog podcast where you bury it.
No, there is one which I listened to where he doesn't actually bury it. He says it's quite good. That's why I made that little trolling episode.
Yeah.
So this is your fault.
Yes.
And I'll do it again, I tell you.
Does everybody want to pimp themselves out before we go?
You can hear me and Jim and some Darren and some other guy who's turning up at some point when he stops playing bingo on the Black Dog podcast, which you can find on Geekplanetonline on iTunes, and you can join our Facebook group, which is facebook.com/groups/the Black Dog podcast, and we talk about movies pretty much like this one does, except there's a lot more swearing and a few more lounge singers.
Elton?
I haven't really got much to pimp. So yeah, there we go.
Pimp the Black Dog again, you idiot.
Yeah, you can find me from next week onwards on the Black Dog podcast. And you can find me on old episodes of Shonky Lab and the Grand Prix podcast as well. There we go.
Jim?
You can hear me fairly regularly, as it stands at the moment. It's gone back to weekly somehow. On the Hypnobobs podcast, which is the Red One Geek Planet Online on iTunes and probably other places as well. And if you look on Audible for Jim Moon, I've got some audio books you can listen to as well of classic tales of terror.
Okay. And you can find me on Twitter as Spaceman300. On here, of course. I don't do much else. You can find us on our Facebook page, which is www.facebook.com/groups/The Witless. So before we go, I'd like to thank Martin Thompson for his defence, and sorry you didn't manage to sway the court, but you did have somebody on your side. Also, I'd like to thank Mr. Matt Dillon from Geekplanetonline for his prosecution and winning the case. I think Lee, Jim and myself helped a lot. And that's about it. Say goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
The Witless for the Defence is a proud member of the Rogue 2 Podcasting Network.
Hello, Alan. This is Alan. Don't forget to take the pork chops out of the fridge.
Oh, dear.